but the problem is that it's basically access. A lot of them are not learning. It's not the teacher's fault also, because teachers do not really have the information or the training to teach a diverse classroom, a classroom where different children have different kinds of needs, right? So as a result, some teachers are struggling and do not know how to include all the children, how to reach all children, and how to teach all children. So UDL is one such framework that gives the teacher some principles, some guidelines, some questions that will help her include all children in her class. So let me just start the presentation. Let me start the screen sharing. Am I allowed to share? Because it's not happening. It's disabled, I think. It says host as disabled. Right. So is it visible now? Yeah. Okay. So universal design for learning. And let me just give you a little bit of a background just to understand. So this was actually created, it was designed by an organization called CAST, which is Center for Applied Special Technology in the US. And this was actually designed in the 1990s. So it's actually nothing new. A lot of people think that UDL is a new concept, but it's actually started in 1990s. And the mission of CAST, the Center for Applied Special Technology, is to transform education design and practice until learning has no limits. UDL itself was inspired by another movement which was called the Universal Design Movement. And everybody must have heard the term access for all. Yeah. So the Universal Design Movement, which actually started in the 1980s by an architect who himself was disabled. His name was Ronald Mace, and he found that his mobility was not allowed, his limited mobility. He was a wheelchair user. He was not able to access a lot of places. He was not able to use a lot of products because of his limitations and because of environmental limitations. So he started this movement called Access to All, and where he started designing products as well as the built-in environment, right? We talk about accessible environment to be aesthetic as well as usable to the greatest extent possible. Like, so everybody should be able to use those products. Everybody should be able to use the environment regardless of what your age is, what your ability is, or what your status is in life. So actually, again, here are some examples of accessible design. Everybody knows about ramps and staircases. This is part of access to all, right? Everybody knows about closed captions. Closed captions is also an accessible design. And it's not, again, just to give an example, it's not only for people with hearing impairment that they can read it. It is useful for a lot of other people also. If there's a noisy environment and you can't follow what's happening, you can use closed captions. Accent is another thing. Sometimes you're watching a movie or you're watching a show where you are unable to understand because of the accent. So closed captions also help in that. So that's also access to all. The taps with sensors, again, of course it helps people with disabilities, but it's again access to all. Everybody can use it. The automatic doors that you have, again, were actually built for people with disabilities, but they're useful for everybody, right? Yeah. Low floor buses. So these are some of the things. So from Universal Design Movement, the inspiration was Universal Design Movement. So from UDM, we come to UDL, which is Universal Design for Learning. So this was for access, and Universal Design for Learning is all about learning. access to learning. So UDL is a research-based framework which is being used the world over to make learning more inclusive. It presents principles and guidelines that can be used by educators to proactively adapt lessons to meet the needs of all students in a diverse classroom. Now, the goal of UDL, if you go to the website, you'll get a lot of information. If you go to CAST website, so the goal of UDL is that all children become expert learners. And what do you mean by expert learners? They become purposeful and motivated. They become resourceful and knowledgeable. And the work, the learning is strategic and it's goal directed. Now, Universal Design for Learning, UDL, enhances teaching and learning based on the science of how people learn. So there's a background of science in the concept of UDL. And it identifies 3 brain networks. Now, if people, the educators are familiar with Vygotsky and his theory, they'll be able to associate what UDL is trying to say and how it's trying to connect brain networks with learning. So according to UDL, there are 3 brain networks. The affective networks, which is the why of learning. What is the value? Why should I pay attention? Why should I learn what I'm supposed to learn? There are networks which are recognition networks, the what of learning. What is it that I'm supposed to learn? And the third is the strategic networks, which is how do I learn? The process, right? So these 3 brain networks are linked to universal design of learning. This is what UDL uses to come up with its principles and strategies.
Continue.
Okay. So we've just covered just the basic part, that how UDL uses science about how, are you following? So I can't see the, oh, so screen sharing is happening. Okay, fine. So we just talked about the 3 brain networks which are linked to how people learn. So although all brains, like all of our brains, they shared these 3 networks. All of us have these 3 operations, but each individual brain receives and processes information very differently. I mean, in simple words, what we're trying to say is that all of us have these brain networks, but not all of them are used in the same way. So not all students learn in the same way. They don't learn at the same time. Yeah, so there is a variation. So here are some examples. There are some students who can answer questions in class. They're the first ones to answer questions, but they find it difficult to write an exam paper. Yeah. So there are some students who find it difficult to pay attention in class. Yeah, they're very distracted, but then they can spend the whole day, full concentration, writing code, because that's what they love to do, right? That's how their brain network is functioning. So it is unfair to expect that all students receive and process information in one standard way, right? So we need to have a variation in the way we present information, in the way we teach, and in the way we expect students to respond. This is a very common cartoon that you would see, and that's what it's trying to portray. That there is diversity in children. Children have different styles of learning. So why are we expecting just one way, one size fit all kind of a model, which is the traditional model? We need to design our curriculum and our teaching learning experiences to accommodate these differences, right? Differences in how children learn, differences in how children perform. So how can you apply UDL in the classroom? Everybody knows what a diverse classroom is. Yeah, children have different learning styles, children come from different backgrounds, different experiences, they have different abilities, they have different needs, right? The problem is that the tools that the teachers have today, the traditional tools and the strategies and the methods are not adequate to meet the needs of a diverse classroom, because they are basically catering to an average classroom. A teacher can use these UDL principles and guidelines to proactively adapt to meet the needs of all children in a diverse classroom. So let's connect lesson designing with the three brain networks that we talked about earlier. The first one was your affective network, which is why should I learn, right? So this determines how long and carefully you look at what is happening in class. Now, when students do not see the relevance of what they're learning, they're not able to connect, they're not able to pay attention, and as a result, they are not able to learn. So this comes to our first principle of UDL, which means that you need to have multiple means of engagement, right? You need to tap into the learner's interests. You need to offer appropriate challenges. What does appropriate challenges mean? That the task should neither be too easy for the child, it should not be too difficult. It should be in the zone of proximal development, if you're again familiar with Vygotsky. So that's where the learning needs to happen. It should be challenging and it should be motivating. You should have, so that is what it means by multiple means of engagement, that all children in class should be able to engage with what is happening. So you do it in a multiple of different ways. Okay? So it's not restricted to one way that I'm going to give a lecture and all students are going to listen. Use multiple ways of engagement. And when you're designing the lesson, when you're making the lesson plan, ask yourself these questions. That as teachers, ask yourself these questions: that are we aware of each child's interest? Are we tapping into those interests? How are we engaging students in their learning? Is it a one-way thing or are they engaged? Are we only transmitting the information? Are they also expected to be involved in the learning? Are they motivated? Are we addressing learner preferences? Again, as teachers, all of us are aware of the concept of learning styles, learning preferences, multiple intelligence, all these concepts. So what we need to do is apply that in the lesson plan. Are we presenting appropriate challenges to keeping them motivated, like I mentioned earlier? Is it too easy? Is it too difficult? Or is it in the zone of proximal development? So that's principle one, a very simple thing, that provide multiple means of engagement when the class is being conducted. The second network was the recognition network, the what of learning. So again, we just mentioned that different learners perceive and understand information differently. Some learners process information more effectively in the visual format. Some people are visual learners. Some people learn better when they hear things. Some people learn better when they are doing things. So when information is provided only via one format, not all the students will be able to acquire the information effectively. Some children will not be able to learn efficiently. So what do we need to do? The second principle of UDL is that apply multiple means of representation. The way in which you're presenting information, make it get a little bit of variety in it so that it includes all different learning styles and different learning presentations. So again, examples are given over here. Don't be restricted to a blackboard and textbook concept. Use more interesting things, a variety of things like large print, picture books. You can use e-books where the children are using the computer. You can have audiobooks, you can have videos, you can use sign language, you can use text to speech, you can use storyboards. So present the information in different ways. And while designing the lesson, ask yourself these questions. What kind of content are we presenting? How are we presenting it? Are we presenting it in a single format, or are we presenting multiple options and choices for the students? Are all the students able to understand, are able to look at what is happening, able to understand what the content is? The third network is the strategic network, which is the how of learning. How does the student demonstrate that he has learned whatever was being taught in class? So again, if it's restricted to a written exam or a written test, some students will not be able to perform properly. So which is the third principle of UDL, which means that use multiple means of action and expression. Provide learners alternatives for demonstrating what they know. So again, a lot of schools are already doing this. A child can respond verbally. You don't have to do a paper pencil test. You can have a scribe. You can use a digital format. You can record your answers. You can do a video recording. You can even draw a comic strip to show what you have learned. You can use sign language. You can use role play. So these are the various ways in which you can test. That's what we want to know. How we want to know whether the child has understood what is being taught in class or not. And while designing the lesson, ask yourself these questions. How are the students expected to express themselves? Are we providing students alternative ways of demonstrating what they've learned? Or are we sticking to our exams and paper pencils? So UDL is basically an inclusive education practice. It moves away from traditional constraints because it provides all children opportunities, equal opportunities to learn. So like I mentioned earlier, it's about reaching all and teaching all students in class. And there's a strong focus on goals. And students are actively involved in the goal setting process. So when you provide options to children, it's their responsibility to complete the goal because they are the ones who have selected that I want to learn in this particular way. I'm going to express myself in this particular way. So there is a sense of responsibility in the children. UDL also rejects the idea of an average child. The very fact that the focus is on diversity, the fact that children are different, there are differences, means that there is no concept of average. The design of the environment and the design of the curriculum, the design of the lesson plan is proactive. And the focus is on changing the environment and not the students. The word universal in UDL can be a little bit misleading because universal sounds as if it's universal. You can apply it everywhere. It's a one size fit all. But actually, it's just the opposite. And universal in UDL refers to a design that can be used by a wide range of people. UDL focuses on removing barriers to learning by providing challenging and rich instructional support. So students have access to different formats. They have multiple ways of engaging. They have multiple ways of assimilating and information and expressing themselves. So it's all about removing barriers, providing more options, providing more choice. There is inbuilt flexibility. There is focus on choice and decision making. And it's not limited to students with disabilities. Though it started as a concept for children with disabilities, again, the result is positive. All students benefit from UDL. It improves learning experiences of all students because what happens? they also get a chance to listen to a story instead of reading it out. They also get a chance to expressing themselves differently according to their strength. And there's also been there have been studies where it's shown that there is a decrease in behavioral references. Children who we labeled as having behavioral problems, that they don't pay attention in class, they disturb others. When you apply UDL, a lot of children are actually interested, they are more engaged, and there is a decrease in behavioral, reports of children having behavioral problems. Now, all of us are familiar with this diagram. I mean, you've seen this visual so many times, that there's a difference between equality and equitable, equal and equitable. So the third diagram is about UDL, that how you can actually, so can you see the difference between the three? The first one is equal, so everybody is given a stool to see what's happening, and some children are left out. Equitable means that the support is based on the student need. You make accommodations, so one child doesn't need a stool or whatever. There is one child who can see what's happening with one stool. Another child needs a combination of two stools. So UDL says that what if we design the lesson in such a way that you don't have to look at giving each child these accommodations. So instead of having a barrier, instead of having a wall, what about having a fence where all children can use whatever is happening easily? So that's what UDL is all about, that looking at the needs and catering to a wide range of students within the classroom. I think some people would be familiar with differentiated instructions also. So there's also a link between UDL and differentiated instructions, in the sense that UDL by itself is not a solution. Yes, a wide range of students would be able to benefit from it, but there will still be some students who would require additional support. So in terms of the content, in terms of process, and in terms of product. So a wide range would be able to benefit from UDL, but you would still need an addition of differentiated instruction, not for all children, but maybe for a few children. So even CAST says that UDL emphasizes proactive design of the environment and curricula, while differentiated instructions also need to be there to respond to individual needs, and together they can provide a powerful combination to reach all students, right? So again, people must be familiar with this pyramid. If you're familiar with inclusion and differentiated instruction. If you look at the pyramid, universal design comes at the bottom. So most of the students would be able to benefit, and UDL would be sufficient, but there would be some students who would also need the additional support of differentiated instruction or specifically designed instruction. But most of the students would benefit just by universal design of learning. So I get a lot of teachers who write to me that I want to teach all the students in class, but I don't know how, and I don't know where to start. So you can start by applying UDL in your lesson plans. This is a starting point. And again, start small. Don't get overwhelmed by all the principles and so much and all the brain networks. It can look complicated. So step one is get to know all your students. Get to know each student. Get to know their interests. Get to know their aspirations. Get to know their needs. What is the support that they need? Step two is just start with one chapter. Just start with one lesson. Try it out. Ask yourself the questions we listed under the 3 brain network, right? We got a list of questions under each principle. So collect those, compile those, and ask yourself those questions while making your lesson plan. What you need to do is include multiple ways of engagement, include multiple ways of how you're going to conduct the lesson and how the child is going to respond, how each child is going to respond, and base them on the student needs and interests. Actually, it's very simple. Once you conduct your lesson plan, reflect on what happened. How was the student participation? Were they able to understand? Were you able to teach all the students in class? What was the motivational level? What was the response? And review, or remember to get the feedback from your students, because that's very important, and incorporate it into the next lesson. So I would like to end by saying that change is not easy. It's daunting because it involves letting go of what you've been doing for so many years. Yeah, it means you have to learn new ways. You have to learn new things. You have to learn new ways of looking at your students. You have to learn new ways of planning. You have to invest time. And yes, you have to make that extra effort. But if you really want to move away from this systemic injustice, if you really want to move away from this exclusion, and if you really want to take a few steps towards inclusive education, we have to come out of our comfort zones and we have to take some action. And we can continue what we've been doing, excluding students and just teaching a class whether all the children are getting it or not. Or we can start by applying the UDL principles in our respective classrooms. And the choice is ours. Thank you.